Hi everybody, welcome to episode 33 of KNITLIB the podcast. My name is Susan and it's so great to have you here. This is my little corner of YouTube that's all about knitting and crafting and books and libraries and stuff about my life. If you've been here before, you know the deal. If you're a new viewer, just checking me out for the first time, hello, welcome. We're just gonna jump right in. It has been a little while since I last recorded, and no real reason, really. Truthfully, I've been dealing with an injury that has now gotten a lot better. In the last episode, I talked about how I fractured my elbow, and do I have lots of bags under my eyes? Oh man. Okay, whatever. Real life is happening. So yeah, I broke my elbow. I slipped on ice right at the end of winter and beginning of spring. So it was like right at the end of April type of thing. And yeah, that put a bit of a damper on a lot of my knitting and a lot of my life in general. So yeah, things have been pretty busy. I had about 3 weeks off between semesters at school. I am currently pursuing my Master's of Library and Information Studies through the University of Alberta and doing it all online. So I go to school all year round, which means I spend way more time than I'd like in front of a computer. So I'm back in school. Classes have started. I'm only doing one course this year, and thankfully the content is something that is pretty relevant to the work that I do already in the public library, and I also have a lot of knowledge about it already. So I'm not saying that this class feels like a cakewalk, but I'm enjoying, for a change, not feeling like I'm in over my head all the time. So yeah, it's been pretty good so far. Summer has started in Calgary. I think it's going to be a hot one. I think that's pretty much across the board for a lot of people because now, the reality is big swings in temperature and, all that jazz. Welcome to the apocalypse. Sorry, that was a bit of a downer. So things are getting hot around here. I have already experienced my first brutal sunburn, and which you would probably seen if you have checked out my most recent book talk video, which I'll figure out how to put the link up here. You can kind of see evidence of that sunburn, which was yeah, it was pretty bad. I was peeling for a while, and I finally evened out to sort of a tan now, which is great. But yeah, it's really hot in Calgary, really sunny, and it means I'm wearing SPF 100 all the time and walking around with an umbrella. Yeah, I'm fair-skinned. Those that are also fair-skinned know the struggle. I burn like a lobster instead of tanning like... I was about to say, what's something that tans well? Like leather? That'd be so gross. Yeah, that's attractive. I tan like leather. Anyway, yeah, so enough blabbly blabs. I think this is probably going to be a bit of a blabby episode. It is Saturday. It is mid-morning on Saturday. I do have my coffee brewed. It's getting kind of a little warm inside one of my favorite and oldest mugs, handmade mugs that I have. And yeah, we're gonna get started with some knitting things. I'll start off with what I'm wearing because I have a lot of knitting to share with you, and yeah, we'll just begin with what I'm wearing. I'm actually wearing an entirely handmade wardrobe, which never happens, but it's happening right now. Yeah, I'm wearing one of my finished objects, but I'll just talk about what I'm wearing top first. I'm wearing my little vest, which is the, oh shoot, what's it called? It's by Anna Maltz. It is the Pen Pal cardigan. There you go. And I knit sort of like a little sleeveless waistcoat version that I don't typically button up. I just leave open. Yeah, I really like it. And I'm wearing it over top of my most recent finished object, which is a beach tank. And I'll take off. Actually, I might just keep the vest off for a little while because it's gonna get fairly warm in here. So this is the beach tank by Mild Woman, who is sort of, I don't know if they're a design duo or what, but they're, you know, design house, I guess, of great knitting patterns. And I think the beach tank, when I look back in Ravelry at the beach tank pictures, finished objects and stuff, it looks like all of the beach tanks from way back when are all seamed. Now this pattern is knit in the round, and it's bottom up, and then has little I-cord straps right here. It's split for like the armpits and has kind of a little slanty in like that. It's a really beginner friendly pattern. If you are maybe have never knit a garment before, but are a confident beginner, you can definitely take this pattern on. It's knit entirely in the round. It's very quick. I've knit mine cropped. I think in the pattern itself is kind of cropped. It's a boxy, I'll just stand up here. It's a boxy, a boxy tank top, pretty much the same as it is on the back. There's no shaping to it or anything like that. I knit this in, it's also knit in an Aran weight, like a worsted to an Aran weight yarn. So I decided to go stash busting because even though I'll talk about it in a little bit, I did break my yarn diet, but I have been on, I don't even like calling it a diet. It's not a diet, I've been fasting. So I've been on a yarn fast, and I hadn't purchased yarn since April 11th, which was pretty good. And I've just been going into my stash, hauling out old projects that don't work anymore for me, that are in progress and stuff, and just ripping all the yarn out and casting on for new stuff. And one of them is this tank top. So I held together one strand of, and I have the label here, of Anchor Bay, which is 50% cotton, 50% superwash merino wool from Cascade Yarns. Here's the label. And I bought a whole whack of this yarn initially to do a dress, and it was just like, I cast on for it like 2 years ago or something, and it's still not even, it was still not done. So I'm just like, okay, screw this. I'm just gonna start ripping out the yarn and use it for something else. And I held it together with a skein of self-striping yarn. So I don't remember what self-striping yarn this is. It must be something like, I don't have any self-striping yarn that's from like an indie dyer or anything. They're all like mass-produced or like big retailers or stuff. So I think that this might be, I think this colorway, this is what the striping action is happening here. I think this might be, might be online self-striping yarn maybe, because I do have a lot of it and I have purchased a lot of it. I love holding together like a DK. The Anchor Bay is a DK weight, so held together with fingering weight makes a worsted weight. So yeah, I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I'm really pleased with also using up some of my sock yarn stash, because I recently was going through it and I'm like, oh boy, I have way too much sock yarn and not enough stamina to knit socks, so how can I use this up? And this is the answer. So I'm very pleased with how this turned out. It is, I mean, when it's 30 degrees Celsius out, you might not really want to wear a wool tank top, but I don't know. I kind of like it when it's breezy. It's like the gauge is loose enough that the breeze goes right through, so it's kind of cool. This is not the only beach tank that has been completed since my last episode. This was actually a pretty impulsive cast on. I think I knit this in like 3 days, 4 days, very, very fast. The first one I made, which I think I shared on the podcast, I can't remember, is this one here, and this is also boxy. This was knit in Noro from my stash. It's like Noro Tayo, I think, and it's a cotton wool silk blend. And it's typical Noro yarn, so it's kind of, you know, self-striping, tons of knots in the ball, so the stripes are interrupted the whole way through. And it's like kind of thick and thin, which is why the straps are kind of two different widths or thicknesses or whatever, but I don't care. That's the nature of Noro. So this, I finished this and I've worn it a lot. I love it because it's actually, this one I went down, the modifications that I did was I basically took what was going to be the size for my bust and like kind of shaved off a few stitches. I think I can't remember the exact cast on or something. So like, excuse me, I'm going to throw out an arbitrary number. So say if this was like 170 stitches around, I cast on 156 for this one to make it fit a little bit tighter. That being said, I actually kind of prefer the fit of this one because it's so boxy and so much wider than my torso, because it kind of flows a little bit better. And believe it or not, even though it's like super boxy, because of the way that this kind of sits and the angle, the decreases that come up, you don't actually get too much gaping, which is pretty impressive. So if you're on the lookout for like a fun summer knit, it is a paid for pattern. I suggest you check out Beach Tank by Mild Woman. It's pretty good. And I like it so much that I cast on for another one. Oh my god, I'm just trying to use up stash yarn. I'm trying to use up stash. This one is living inside of a bucket, knitting bucket that a dear friend of mine gave me a bajillion years ago. She bought it off of Etsy. Pretty sure the Etsy shop does not exist anymore. But yeah, it's a handmade little bucket with a lino print ball of yarn on there. And in here is another beach tank, the beginnings of another beach tank that's been heavily modified. And this is also holding DK weight yarn with self-striping sock yarn, so I'm getting some cool effects here. I cast on for it to be a little bit smaller again, just like this one, so the fit will be somewhat similar. But what I did do differently is I did a split hem, which you can see here, kind of like the Weekender pullover. I really like the way that that fit. So I did a split hem on there with the hope that this will kind of fit a little less tight. Like, that's the problem when you have ribbing on things. Sometimes the ribbing will flare out and other times it might just come in and just like cut you right off. So having a split hem is always kind of nice. It is an extra bit of work, but worth it. Worth it. So yeah, that's on its way. I'm almost at the point where I'm going to separate for the front and the back. And yeah, the yarns I'm holding together are, again, random ball of self-striping sock yarn, which is, I had it caked up already, so here we go. So random ball. I went through this whole thing a couple of years ago when I was destashing, or not, just organizing my stash. I took all of my sock yarn and divided them into like equal cakes so that I could just like grab and go and make socks. So as a result, I threw out all of the labels because I'm a dummy. And now I have like all of these broken skeins. I don't know. Hindsight is always 20/20, friends. And then I'm holding it together with, again, stash diving from leg warmers I had tried to make last year or the year before or something like that, with this skein, a couple of skeins of Mineville Wool Project DK in this sort of beautiful gold. Yeah, so moving through that and doing this. So I'm pretty stoked about this. I am knitting them on 5mm needles, I think. So US 8, using my Chiaogu interchangeables, which is my favorite needle. And yeah, that's well on its way. I think this will be really great for fall, and for when it gets a little bit colder, because I know I have a couple of skirts I know it's going to look super good with, and I'm already anticipating the layering that I can have, because I think this will be awesome for work, because sometimes I get cold, but I also get overheated because I'm pretty active at work. I play a lot with children, so I get overheated fairly quickly. So being able to wear a sweater is great, but being able to wear a wool tank top might be even better. Not that I don't feel comfortable just wearing this to work. This is a little too meh. But wearing, say, something like my pen pal cardigan vest over it, then it's work appropriate. Ain't nothing like a vest to make things work appropriate. That's like how I feel about a blazer. You could be wearing pajamas, and the minute you put on a blazer with a bit of shoulder pad in there, you're like, I am ready for a conference call where no one can see me, but I feel important and powerful. This is my power stance. Ha! Yes, so we're just barreling through because I have so much shiz to share with you. Yeah, we're gonna go into some works in progress now. I'm gonna share with you another impulsive cast on. So yeah, I'm gonna go rummage around and grab a drink, grab some coffee, and yeah, we're gonna take a look at the next thing. Okay, I'm back. Totally full disclosure, I just took a break to eat nachos. And yeah, it's not even 11 o'clock in the morning. I'm an adult. I can do whatever I want. So let's go into what it is I'm working on now. I do have something to share. Let me just get it here. It's living inside of this random weird bowl that I got at a thrift store like a million years ago. And it is some crochet. Yeah, I am crocheting a giant granny square. Wrong side. Right side. Right here. Ooh, look at this granny square. Yeah, I'm crocheting this really basic granny square out of some, again, stash busting, random weird self-striping yarn. This is the last of what I have. It's a couple of different balls. I had a whole bunch of different balls. I basically just did a magic knot and then wound into a big cake. The knitting store I used to work in years ago, they had this yarn that I was kind of like, when folks were coming in looking for yarn to knit baby garments, I was sending them to this because it was super washable, I remember that. And it always came in these sort of bright, lovely self-striping colors. It was in the way that the yarn shop was organized at the time. They had kind of like their Noro-like self-striping weird yarns all in one area, and then like, you know, Rowan and everything else, Debbie Bliss and everything in like another area. And so I don't remember what brand this is or anything, but it's pretty fun. And it's beautiful for crochet. I think I had originally bought it to knit up some baby sweaters maybe, but again, you know, that didn't happen. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll use it to knit myself a sweater, because often the same colors that people use to knit garments for their children are exactly the colors I use to knit garments for myself. Yeah, I'm my own best grandma. So I'm digging this crocheted thing. I haven't worked on it admittedly in a little while, just because I got too excited about other things, which I'll share with you in a second. But the intent for this is to actually have it as a sort of table runner, kind of table square thing to go on my patio table. So I'm going to be working on it until I'm finished all of this, and then it'll be as big as it is, and then I'm going to get some other random yarns, probably some acrylic, and do tassels on the corners, and yeah, it'll be quite cute, I think. Or if it doesn't end up, alternatively, if it doesn't end up on my patio table, I might maybe use it as a driver's seat doily. I'm just thinking of this now. Yeah, I might put it in my car and have it as like a doily in my car. That's pretty funny. Does anybody, okay, in all honesty, for those that drive, that have cars, have you blinged out any part of your car with yarn? I am very curious about this. Yeah, I keep thinking about knitting a steering wheel cozy, but I just keep not getting around to it. Yeah, so that's the other work in progress, crocheted square. Not quite a granny, it's not a granny stripe blanket, it's just a granny square, which is pretty much the only kind of crochet that I know how to do. And yeah, there's something very satisfying about knitting a crocheted square that just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's incredibly satisfying. I love it. Yeah, so that brings me to, let me look at my show notes here. Brings me to the next work in progress, which is actually a yarn that was in a work in progress. You'll recognize the yarn if you watched the last episode, but I have since ripped it out. I have frogged that project I was working on. So the yarn I'll show you is, I've showed it a couple of episodes now because I just love it so much. It is by The Fawn and the Fox. It is her Grizzly base, which is a DK base, and the colorway is called Poolside. So lovely, great speckled color that has like these great, really bright green and flecks of like purple. And I love the green, these unexpected sort of like brick red kind of colors through there. I love it. I had initially started knitting a skirt from the more modern top-down knitting book that I got from the library, and it was the texture, the stitch pattern texture was beautiful. It was like a linen stitch, and it looks so great in this yarn. However, as I started knitting it, and I was thinking about how freaking long this is going to take, because I want it to be kind of like below the knee, and I'm tall. I'm about 5'9", and I'm just like, oh my god, that's gonna take forever, especially because my torso is fairly short. So like I got a long way to my knees. So I'm like, okay, screw that. And there's also been this little issue, and probably because I keep stopping to eat nachos, some of my skirts and my things, I've put on a little bit of weight, and I'm pretty sure it's because I keep eating nachos, but I'm not going to stop eating nachos. yeah, so I was thinking, you know, like being a grown-up, like I'm a healthy grown-up and my weight will fluctuate, like, you know, 10 pounds here or there, depending on how active my lifestyle is, what my eating habits are like, and like how stressed out I am and all this stuff. So right now, because of my busted up elbow and I haven't been doing yoga, and it's just with all sorts of stuff, I haven't been exercising as much as I usually have been. So as a result, I've gotten a little more squishy than normal, that has, around my midsection, that has caused some of the things that I normally wear to be a little bit tight. So I was thinking about it, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to knit a skirt and have it not fit because of weight fluctuation or whatever. That's not practical. But knitting a cardigan, on the other hand, that's practical, because a cardigan, no matter how big or how small you get, it'll always still fit. So in theory, because if you can't do it up, you can just leave it open. So I took the same yarn and I unraveled it, and I cast on for a new project that I'm calling Poolside in Anaheim, because it is the Anaheim pattern from Andi Satterlund. She published this pattern, I think it was last year. It's an all over lace wrap cardigan that's cropped, has stockinette sleeves, there's an I-cord edge, super pretty. I'm going to show you what I have so far. It is living inside of this cool little project bag by Danica Studios, which I have been seeing actually advertisements and stuff lately for Danica Studios. And I think it must have been on Instagram, like one of the Instagram ads, talking about, you know, these cosmetic bags that they make that you can just use for anything. And I really like this boat one. It has like weird, like faux leather inside, which makes it great for cosmetics because, you know, if you have anything spill in there, it's easy to clean. But I have my Poolside in Anaheim cardigan in here. So this is what I got so far. Here we go. I have a thing for green. So this is turning out so well. It's a top-down cardigan. If you're familiar with working with Andi Satterlund's patterns, you know you always cast on the upper back first, and then you pick up stitches along the tops of the shoulders to knit the fronts. So you knit each front separately, and then you join either in the round, or in this case, you just join everything underneath the underarm and go to town. So I'm normally not a lace person, but this lace is pretty intuitive, and I really love the kind of vertical stripes that happen, and these kind of staggered eyelets. They're quite cool. It's very memorizable, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. The only increasing that is happening is kind of on the center, like right here, like in the front, because it will increase to the point where you can button one part in and then wrap the other side around, so it'll be really flattering. I'm really looking forward to having this, because I don't have a lot of cardigans in my wardrobe, and the only cardigans I wear all the time are actually gray, which is boring. But they're gray cardigans that I actually got at a thrift store that are like, you know, either Banana Republic or The Gap or, you know, something like that. Just like generic fine knit gray cardigans that go with everything. But I'm really looking forward to having something with a bit more punch. One thing I am doing differently with this has been addictive to knit, but I am trying to knit continental throughout the entire thing. I'm trying to shift my knitting style to be a continental knitter. Not because things go faster, because I'm actually, I'm a thrower and by, like, that's just the way I normally knit, but I am quite a quick knitter. So I'm not doing it for speed, but I'm doing it to save my hands. I've recently, and I've talked about this in episodes before, the issues I've had with my thumb. So I went to the doctor about it and a while ago, and they said it was inflamed tendons. I think it's actually something else going on too, so I need to make another run back to the doctor, especially because my knuckle has been swelling, and like visibly swelling, and not just like Susan's making this stuff up. Yeah, so I've realized, I think it's coming from knitting, and so I need to, because I don't want to stop knitting, I'm limiting the amount of knitting I'm doing, but I figure I need to change the way that I knit. So that is taking breaks, the type of yarn that I'm using, the size of needle I'm using, and the type of projects that I'm doing, and how I'm holding the yarn. So I'm trying to knit continental. I'm getting fairly good at it. My tension is pretty good. This whole thing has been pretty much knit continentals, and I'm pleased with my tension. Purling, because this pattern has like it has a lace row and then a plain row, like a purl on the way back, lace row, plain row, purl. Purling is not fun the best of times, and I actually find purling when I'm throwing quite painful for my left thumb. So I have switched to purling continental, and things are going a lot better. I've had to fiddle with my tension a lot. I've had to like figure out how it works for me to wrap the yarn around my finger, and tensioning your yarn, no matter if you're doing continental knitting or throwing or anything like that, it's a very personal experience. So it's like, I always find when I've been in teaching knitting classes and stuff, and I have some students that are like really anxious about how to hold their yarn or what's the proper way to hold your yarn, and there really, in my opinion, there is no right way, wrong way to hold your yarn. You just need, it's like yoga. You just need to figure out how to do it so it works for you to get the effect that you need. So, yeah, I was figuring out how to wrap it to purl, and then I was still, like, the stitches were still being loose. I was constantly having to like tighten them on the needle. So I looked up the Norwegian purl, and this was at the suggestion of one of my knitty friends here in Calgary, who had suggested that I try doing the Norwegian purl. Look it up. So I looked it up. I'll include the link in my show notes. And I found this cool YouTube video, and it really breaks down how to do a Norwegian purl. And after a little bit of trial and error, like with anything, you just got to get into it. Now I'm getting pretty quick at it, and I still have to look at what I'm doing. And as opposed to when I'm throwing, I don't look at what I'm doing at all. I can read and I can knit at the same time, if I'm just doing straight knitting. With continental, I'm not there yet. So that's kind of interesting. It's making me be mindful of my knitting. But the Norwegian purl, there is like an extra dance step. It's like a little dance that you're doing. There's an extra step that you have to do in order to get that tension to happen, because basically you're technically not moving your yarn into the front of your work to do the purl. You're doing basically 2 yarn overs, and the way you manipulate the right hand needle is how you get the purl stitch. So it's a little tricky, but definitely I've had really nice even purl stitches. Now I go a little bit slower, but again, it's worth it. And especially if I'm trying to like be nice to my hand, going slow and being more mindful of my knitting and more mindful of my body as I'm knitting is a good thing. So yeah, this is well on its way. I'm I don't know how many stitches I'm at. I know this is going to block really well, and I'm looking forward to wearing it this summer. And basically, I don't think I'll be wearing it outside necessarily because it's going to be so freaking hot. But in the air-conditioned conditions of the public library, this is going to be very handy. Yeah, so we're working on that. Something I have decided to start for the summer is a knit-along. We're going to be doing a knit-along, friends, and it's going to be called the Warm Weather Knit-Along, and it's going to be very informal. It's going to start, I was saying it's going to start June 1st, which is like not that far away. This podcast will probably be up, and then June 1st will probably be like the next day. That's okay, because we are I'm hoping to get this whole knit along happening on Instagram and using hashtags. The hashtags that we're going to be using is warmweatherKAL, and as well KNITLIB podcast on there too. So yeah, where the KAL is basically all about knitting or crocheting warm weather stuff. So that could be, I am very loose on what that stuff is. So if you can justify it as a spring or summertime knit, then it counts. So we're looking at, you could do shorty socks, like little ankle socks. You could knit a picnic blanket. You can, I don't know, crochet a parasol. You can knit a bikini. You can, I don't know, maybe summer months where you are, maybe you're on the opposite end of the world, and it's actually winter where you are. So maybe your spring, your July through, you know, September knits are actually heavy sweaters. Like, however you justify this, you are in. Double dipping is fine. I am totally open. I just want to get a conversation happening on Instagram with us sharing all of our knits and all the things that we're working on so we can inspire each other. I'm just looking at all the notes that I've written down here. I'm going to create like an actual KAL website, like little web page off of my website, knitlib.ca, with all of the information on there about it, and to keep you kind of with all the like very few rules that are involved. But the big things you need to know is the start date will be June 1st, 2018. Whips are fine. Again, I am very loose with this stuff. It's going to be taking place purely on Instagram using the hashtags warmweatherKAL and KNITLIB podcast. So if your Instagram accounts are private, that means you're not going to be part of the conversation because no one's going to see your posts unless we're your friend already. So I encourage you, if you do have a private account, maybe consider creating a new account that's just for knit-alongs. I don't know. That's just my suggestion, just so you can be in the loop. Because what will be happening with this KAL is that if you are using those hashtags, if you're following me already, if you use the KNITLIB podcast hashtag, the warm weather KAL hashtag in all of your posts, I'm going to be following that both of those hashtags on whatchamacallit, Instagram, because you can follow them on Instagram now. And I'm at the end of the summer, so September 1st is when it is going to end. I'm going to draw a winner or multiple winners from that thread of, not even thread, like basically from that hashtag. So the more you post, it's not going to have a finished object thread or anything like that. The more you post with the warm weather KAL hashtag, the more chances you have to win. So yeah, I'm keeping it open for a nice chunk of time, because I know, you know, summer months, it sometimes takes us a little bit longer to knit than we want and blah, blah, blah. So hopefully if you're into it, I hope that this might be something you want to take part in. And yeah, you can check out my website for all of the details and all that jazz. But warm weather KAL. Speaking of warm weather, one of the things I've also kind of developed inspired by the warm weather KAL is yeah, a playlist. So this is we're gonna go right into shit to knit to, because I haven't done one of these in a while. Yeah, I have created a warm weather music playlist, or I'm in the process of creating it. It's a work in progress. It's going to be both on Spotify and on YouTube. So you can kind of purely listen, or you can sit and watch videos, entirely up to you. But basically all of the songs that I'm putting on there are inspired by springtime, inspired by summer. They're things that I'm loving right now. I listen to a lot of music, and I have a pretty, I like a lot of different kinds of music, and this warm weather music, the way it's shaping up right now, is just a lot of kind of happy indie music. Some of it's a little bit dancey, some of it is a little moody, and yeah, it's a good representation of what of the kind of things that I'm into. I don't know about you guys. Do you listen to a lot of music? Especially other knitting podcasters, I'm wondering, are you listening to a lot of music too? Because I know back in the old school internet days, where, you know, if you had a live journal or anything like that, there would always be this little option that's like listening to, like whenever you're writing your post. And I find, just like how knitting has been a really great way to like connect with other people and to find things in common, music was always that way with me too. And you can tell a lot about a person by the types of music they listen to, and like the types of books they read and all that stuff too. But yeah, I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we all started making playlists? Like, I'm gonna put this, not only is there a shit to knit to playlist for warm weather music, off of my channel. You can access it on my channel underneath the like little heading that says playlists. But I want to maybe do a little call to action for all of the other knitty friends that are out there that have, you know, either video knitting podcasts, or maybe you're just a viewer, a YouTube user that you don't necessarily have a podcast, but maybe you have playlists that you want to share. Yeah, let's start sharing music. Like, that's kind of fun. Let's see what we're all listening to. And because, you know, we're knitting anyway, we might as well be listening to something. That's why we watch these video podcasts, right? So yeah, the shit to knit to, I call it S2K2, music playlist. Warm weather music is currently up. I think there's only like 10 tracks in there right now. There will be more coming, so feel free to just follow, and there'll be new stuff added. And yeah, that brings us to the end, my friends. Yeah, it's just after noon now, and I have some other stuff that I gotta do. So I want to thank you all for hanging out with me today, and I hope that your next few weeks are really awesome. Please, if you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe so you're in the know for when new videos come up. Check out my website for KAL information. If you want to take part in the KAL, definitely check out the website. Check out my Instagram. I'm at KNITLIB on Instagram. Yeah. Happy knitting, friends. I'll talk to you later. Bye.